Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just getting our Zoom call set up. And if you could please disable your video camera, that would be great. If you can hear me, could you please just type a little thumbs up or something in the chat box, just so I know that my microphone is working? Great. Good morning and good afternoon. We've got people from across the country here with us today. And I'm just making sure that our waiting room and everything else is working correctly. All right. Just a friendly reminder, if you're just joining us, if you could please disable your video camera and mute your microphone. This is partially for privacy and partially because I live in a very rural part of New Brunswick, and any delays that we can avoid today would be great. All right, I'm just getting our meeting room and our waiting room set up. And we should be able to get started shortly. All right. While we're waiting just for another moment or so, in the chat box, could you please type if you are brand new to using Big Blue Button, or if you've used it a few times, just give me a rough idea of who we have in the room today. Great. So we have some people that are brand new to it, some that have used it a few times, lots of new people. That's great. Because I'm more familiar with Big Blue Button than I am with Zoom, are you seeing the process that I'm going through to admit people from the waiting room, or are you only seeing my slide on your screen? Perfect, that's great, okay. We'll talk a little bit about the differences between Zoom and Big Blue Button in a few minutes, and I'm obviously a little bit biased because I'm doing the presentation on Big Blue Button today, so I appreciate your patience as we navigate our time with Zoom. Thanks, Paul. Jim sent me your notes about certain pop-ups as well, and they were really, really helpful. Okay. Just admitting a few more people into the call, and we can get started very shortly. All right, just to test our chat box proficiency once again. So I know we have some people that are brand new to Big Blue Button, some people that have used it maybe a couple times. You're looking for some tips. Could you also give me an idea of what levels you teach? Are we talking CLB 1, 2, somewhere in the middle, or more advanced? Great. So we've got quite the spectrum, as you can see in the chat. I have used EduLink and Big Blue Button with a range of learners, most recently with an employment-related class that was mainly targeted for CLB 5 and 6, but I did have a few who were just finishing up 4, and one kind of exception to the rule learner who was just beginning level 4 in that as well. And that class was going on as COVID took off, and we all had to adjust to different teaching styles. So I'm really excited to share with you today about what I've learned about Big Blue Button. I've used Big Blue Button itself for about 3 years now, and I'm not an expert, and I'm not a Moodle specialist either. So this is really a chance for me to share the things that I have troubleshooted. But if you still have further questions after our session today, please reach out to your EduLink mentor or Moodle support through the forums that we have access to. All right, I'm seeing the waiting room is pretty empty, so I'm going to get started, and then I can check back there in just a moment. So today we are talking about using Big Blue Button on EduLink, and just a reminder that this session is being recorded. So anything that I'm saying or that we're seeing on screen will be recorded, as well as any video camera use. So I do remind you again, please turn off your video camera, just because this also helps me maintain a good internet connection because I live quite rurally. What we will be covering today include basically some broad topics that came in through the registration form. So is Big Blue Button better than Zoom? What do we do with that? Some questions about setting things up with Big Blue Button on EduLink, questions about file uploads, the difference between screen sharing and video sharing, and some problems that people have encountered with that. Using the breakout spaces has been a very hot topic in your question forms. We'll also look at troubleshooting a few tech issues. Like I said, I'm not a Moodle specialist, I'm not a computer programmer, but I have a couple of ideas that can help with a few things there. What to do about low-level learners who might be having some trouble accessing Big Blue Button on your courseware, and then a few synchronous teaching ideas for your virtual classroom. Okay, here we go. So one of the big questions that I've gotten has been, what is the difference between Zoom and Big Blue Button? And it really boils down to a matter of preference. Some people have been using Zoom for years and love it, and some people are really, really new to not only virtual teaching, but any type of online conferencing software. So sometimes we're most comfortable with what we were introduced to first, and if that's Zoom for you, that's fine. Some considerations about Zoom is that it is a separate app download. So if you have students who are less technically able or who have fewer kind of digital literacy options available to them, they do have to go through an additional process to download Zoom. While in Big Blue Button, it's included in your EduLink class. And once the teacher has set up the virtual classroom, it's 3 clicks from your course page for a student. They don't need to know a meeting ID. They don't need to know a password. It's all in the same place. So it's a really great one-stop shop on your EduLink courseware for your students. Like Zoom, we have audio and video, there's screen sharing, some recording, chat box, the reactions. All of those features are also in Big Blue Button. But what I like about Big Blue Button is that it also includes the interactive whiteboard, options for sharing video, doing some collaborative notes, breakout spaces, polling. And in this way, I find that Big Blue Button is a lot better for interactive teaching, while Zoom is great for conferencing or chatting. Or we can think about it like Zoom is a meeting room and Big Blue Button is a virtual classroom where you have a lot of those same tools that you would have in your physical space. Thank you to Robin. Zoom also has breakout groups. I wasn't aware of that. So I'm the Zoom newbie here. So we'll go into that, the features of Big Blue Button in our webinar today. But again, if you're finding that your students are comfortable with Zoom and you're more comfortable with Zoom, the bottom line is you need to do in your virtual teaching what is going to best suit your learners' needs and your instructional purposes. But keeping in mind that the really big difference between Zoom and Big Blue Button is that Big Blue Button's already included in our EduLink courseware. So it's easily accessible all in one spot. All right, so getting set up on Big Blue Button, some questions that I got about with our courseware especially is where should I put it on my course? Should I have one conference room that's always open and just at the top of the course? Should I have a different course for my Monday class and my Wednesday class? If I do speaking on Mondays, should I have a speaking classroom and then a reading activity classroom separately? Again, as with most ESL or EAL instruction, it depends. It depends on your learners and it depends on what you want to be doing. So what I'll show you is a few considerations for where to put Big Blue Button on your courseware. And it kind of depends on if you want to restrict the classroom to have a particular day or time set or be always open. And it also depends on recordings. So I'm going to show you one slide first, and then I'll pop over to my EduLink course page. When you have a Big Blue Button activity, what you see here at the top of my slide is what students would normally see to join the session. So they would click the activity title on their course page, which we'll see in just a moment, and they can click Join Session to open the classroom. If you have a Big Blue Button classroom that is always your one meeting place, that's really, really easy for your students to find, and it could be a great option for you. If you do plan to record your session, something that you just need to keep in mind is that your recordings are going to be saved in the same place that the students access the classroom. And this example on my screen is one class that I had recorded 2 times. It was a sample. So we see in the list of recordings, I have 2 presentations. And if I have 2 or 3 classes a week, we can see how this list would get pretty long after a while if my students are always going to the same place. So if you do choose to do that, what I would recommend, once your recordings have saved there, and they do so automatically, it just takes a while because the files are huge, you should just edit the recording name and the description so that it will be easy for students who maybe have missed some content to go back and say, okay, this recording is from April 28th when my teacher was talking about giving directions. This recording is from April 26th when we were talking about place names. So just keep making things as clear as possible. I am seeing a comment in the chat box about confirming students' consent to be recorded. Absolutely. I don't know what the regulations are in your center. At the place where I work, students sign a media waiver for consent for video, photography, audio recording, all that kind of stuff. If a student has not consented to that, that is where we need to be really considerate about what parts of our class are we recording, what interactions are we recording, and being very transparent about that. Also check with your administrators as well. Okay, I'm going to pop over to my course page. So this is just a test course on EduLink, and I have a sample Big Blue Button activity set up. And like I said, students would see that title and they can click the title name and then join session, and then they're in the room. So depending on what you want to do, I'm just going to go back to the course page again. Depending on what you're talking about, You might have a weekly topic that says the dates for this week and what you're working on, and then have your conference name be Monday's classroom, Wednesday's classroom, Friday's classroom, or with a particular date. Or you can keep things simple and put it right up at the top. Okay. I'm going to pop back over to my PowerPoint slides because our next questions, here we go, were about changing the welcome message. So a lot of the setup stuff that we were seeing in terms of recording or the welcome message when you first opened your Big Blue Button room, or inviting other instructors to view or moderate your sample Big Blue Button session, all of these things are in the setup. And for really, really detailed instructions on how to set up a Big Blue Button activity, you can find that in your Stage 3 training. There's a really detailed PDF document that helped me out a lot and has been instrumental in getting really detailed activities set up. I've also posted the link to that on the EduLink Teacher Only forum in response to one of our colleagues who asked me the same question earlier today. But what we will look at very briefly is changing the welcome message and inviting other instructors to moderate. So I'm back in my EduLink course, and my student could join the session, but I'm going to edit the settings right now. And it will look like what it looks like basically when you're creating the activity. So I see my virtual classroom name, I see some settings, and this is where editing the welcome message comes in. So like I said in the tutorial video on YouTube, maybe you want to give your students a warm-up activity for when they first enter the classroom. Today, when you joined our Zoom call, I was asking people what levels they teach, if they're new to Big Blue Button. Some of those icebreaker type questions can also be included in the welcome message on Big Blue Button. And I can also add other kind of social questions as well. What is your favorite flavor of ice cream? What did you think of the homework? Anything like that. And students will see that when they first enter the room. The presentation content, I'm just going to go down a little bit. I've already added my main file that I want my students to see when the classroom opens. And in the video tutorial, I also showed how to add other files during the conference itself. So we'll look at that again in a moment, and we'll talk about some file differences because that was another big question that we got. If you want to invite other teachers to see your class, it's going to be in the participants area. Now, right now in this course, all of the users who are enrolled in my course are enrolled in this Big Blue Button conference as viewers. Anyone who is a teacher in the course is a moderator. And I'm a little bit paranoid. And if I'm in an EduLink course that has multiple teachers assigned, I want to quadruple check that I'm going to be the moderator. This is a little bit overboard, but it makes me feel at ease. So I usually go by user, and I might choose a certain student. Here I have chosen myself. I can add and make sure that I'm the moderator. If I want a particular student to also have moderator capabilities, for example, Paul, I'm going to pick on you today, Paul. Right now, this specific user is set up as a viewer, but I can change him to be a moderator as well. But maybe if Paul is set to do a presentation today, for example, in our class, I might do that. Or I might change my mind and take him off. And I know that he's still enrolled. He's still going to be able to see everything. I see a question about answering chat questions on a cell phone. Short answer is yes. Long answer is wait just a moment. So we have the participants and we have the welcome message. Those are the main things from the setup that people have been asking me about. So I'm going to leave it there for right now. What I had mentioned earlier about setting a particular time for your session is just like in other EduLink activities where you can set a schedule where it might be in a restricted access or things like that, but here it's in join. So I'm going to save those changes. So I've saved that updated question about favorite flavor of ice cream, and now that is there. Got a question about, is moderator and presenter the same? Yes. So now I'm ready to join my session. I'm just going to pop back over to my PowerPoint and make sure I've answered your questions. All right, so I'm going to open my session, and when your student joins a session, their EduLink course is going to stay open in a tab at the top, and then Big Blue Button opens in a separate tab just to the right. Sometimes, depending on your internet, it might take just a moment. So you'll always get this pop-up, how would you like to join the audio? For right now, because I'm talking to all of you through Zoom, I'm going to just select listen only, but normally you as the teacher would select microphone. You may instruct your students to only select listen only and then give them permission throughout to enable their microphones. Great question. If everyone is set as view, do I also need to add the student role for students to view, or is that covered by everyone as viewer? So it would be everyone who is enrolled in your EduLink course, and that should go automatically as viewer. Like I said, the teacher is usually automatically included in the settings as the moderator or the presenter, but I'm just especially paranoid because I'm on a live Zoom call, so I wanted to make sure I would be the moderator. Do we need to update Big Blue Button for each session, even if we are using the same presentation for the next? Not necessarily. The only thing I would say that you would need to update is if you have enabled a particular day and time for that conference. If you're leaving your Big Blue Button conference area perpetually open, you haven't set a time limit, you always want to show the same welcome message, for example, and the same PowerPoint or PDF, you can just leave it the same. Great questions, everyone. Okay, I'm going to go through a few questions that people gave me about files. So, how is sharing a document different from uploading it? And here I wasn't entirely sure about what this question asker was referring to. We can upload a document to be our main presentation tool in Big Blue Button. So here I have uploaded a PDF, and it's a PDF version of a PowerPoint that I made. The reason for that is the PDFs get condensed the most easily into the Big Blue Button software. And so in doing that, it's going to upload faster, there are going to be fewer glitches, and it's going to be easier for me to manipulate on the screen. So I can use that as my main presentation content, but I can also share certain text in the shared notes part. So on the right, or left-hand side of your screen, there's a shared notes area, and you can think of this as like a collaborative space for you and your students to maybe type in unison, or do like instead of a jigsaw reading, do like a jigsaw writing where or like those telephone games where everybody adds a little piece onto the story. So I can type some notes, I can do ideas or brainstorming or a list. I can do all of that in the shared notes here. And my students, I don't have any in this room right yet, and they'll be joining me in just a moment. But they can also add to this, and then I can export it afterward. So I think that's the best way I can answer sharing a document different than uploading it. You can also upload your presentation PDF from Big Blue Button the same way that you would to EduLink. The difference there is when I put it in Big Blue Button, I have those interactive possibilities. So my students can draw on it, we can circle things, we can cross things out, we can do editing. And that was all covered in the tutorial video on YouTube. So it has that interactive piece. in talking about those editing tools or those interactive pieces, I also got a question about when you're showing a document or a website, is the editing tool available? So unfortunately here, the answer is yes and no. On my PDF, which I have here in Big Blue Button, like I showed on the tutorial, we have several tools where I can use a pencil, I can get my students to circle new words to them or underline things and edit that way. But when I do screen sharing, which we'll look at in a moment, these tools are not available. I tried that out today and I couldn't get it to work, and I don't think that it does that. And the reason for that is the students are the ones that are watching the screen sharing here. And as you'll see in a moment, when the teacher shares the screen, they go to a different tab and are manipulating a website or another program. So that would make it hard for some kind of back and forth between the programs and using those editing tools. Excuse me. All right, some more questions about file uploads. In an uploaded PDF, does the text box option work just where it exists, or are you able to use it wherever you wish? Here also we have an unfortunate answer. It kind of gets stuck in place. So let's see what I mean by that. I'm back in my Big Blue Button classroom and I go to my tools, text box, and maybe I want students to type new vocabulary words. So I've drawn a text box and now I'm typing in it. I can push enter and go on the next line. But as soon as I click off of this box, it gets stuck in place. So even if I try to use my pan tool or my hand, I cannot move these. I can delete them when I clear all annotations, or I can go back and just remove the last one. But once you've made the text box, it's there. It's going to be stuck. So just be aware of that. Some people find getting their students to type in the chat box for particular vocabulary words, for example, or fill in the blanks is a little bit easier than using a text box. Just depends on what you're comfortable with. Okay, back to our questions. Once the PowerPoint is uploaded, the transitions stopped working and it just appeared as a document. So like I was saying earlier about file compression and file conversion, this means that Big Blue Button will show the content of your PowerPoint, but it's not going to maintain some of those finicky transition bits or animations. So they're not going to be maintained. It's always going to be best if you save your files as a PDF. You can create them in PowerPoint or Word or different things. It's going to upload easiest to the platform if you use a PDF. Other Office files and JPEG photos are also supported. So I can, in Big Blue Button, go to my actions, upload a presentation, and I can choose other files. Like a Word document. We see it's my docx file to be uploaded, and that will upload. This is a rather large file, so it might take a moment. But we see that once I click upload, it's converting it. Something I've noticed when you share Word documents especially is it's going to show the whole document kind of in a zoomed out position at first, and you might need to use these tools down here to fit to width. So that could be something that's up, but I can still use my pencil and do any of those interactive things there. I'm going to switch back to my original PowerPoint. So I've already uploaded it. I'm just going to click that little check mark and it will take less time. And I'm back there, and it even kept my annotations from when I was there earlier. Okay, I see some good troubleshooting happening in the chat box. I'll just let that happen for a few moments while we move on. And if we still have questions at the end, I can come back to that part. So for file uploads, the moral of the story is stick to PDFs. If you are really trying to keep your transitions that you made or your animations in a PowerPoint, you could screen share and open up PowerPoint separately to keep those. Or you can take this as the freedom to make less complicated PowerPoints and have a little bit easier prep, perhaps. It all depends on what you want to do. A few questions that I got about screen or video sharing. So just in the same spot where we upload a presentation, we can also upload or share an external video. Unfortunately, what you'll see is that this is a copy of the pop-up that will happen. It only supports YouTube, Vimeo, Instructure Media, Twitch, and Dailymotion URLs. So this particular person asked me about a news video clip from CBC, and those aren't going to be supported in the external video portion of Big Blue Button. However, there is a workaround. So just a moment. If we're doing, just to review, if you're doing an action, I can share an external video if I have a YouTube clip I want to show my students. But if I really want to show them a CBC video live, I could try screen sharing. So screen sharing is great for teachers to use for demonstrating website navigation. You can use it to show your students different features on EduLink if they're needing help with that, or you can use it to share some external resources or assignments. So I'm going to go to my Big Blue Button and go to my share my screen. And when you click on share screen, just like in Zoom, there's a few different options. I can choose share your entire screen, share my application window, and share my Chrome tab. Now, if you're sharing an application window, like a PowerPoint file or an external program, that will probably work the easiest. If you're doing it for sharing videos, I've tried it a couple different times, depending on where I am for internet, depending on my students' strength of internet. If I'm showing a CBC website, for example, what's going to happen, I had the CBC article open in my tab over here already. I can see that my Big Blue Button is connecting to that. And this is what my students will see. And I know that Big Blue Button is sharing this tab because now I see the blue square over here, or the blue button. So if I try to move this while I'm in Big Blue Button, nothing's going to happen because it's screen casting essentially from over here. So if I want my students to read a particular part of this article about a puzzle library, I might scroll up or down. I could use this to show different functions on EduLink, and you can technically click play on the video here, but because of internet connectivity, there might be a little bit of delay in the sound. It all depends on your connection, and because I live rurally, I haven't had great success with that, but if you have awesome internet, please try this and let me know how it goes. And again, within the Big Blue Button area, remember that you or your students can't interact with the website here. It has to be the teacher doing the actions over here in the website that you're sharing. You will also see a little tab at the top that says it's sharing this tab. And when I'm done, I can click stop, and my Big Blue Button just automatically goes back to my original file. Okay, you might also experience some issues with audio only with that video. And if that's the case, and you're desperate to show a particular video, you might use the screen sharing tool to show your students how to access that website or where you've put it on EduLink, and get them to watch the video separately outside of Big Blue Button as a last resort. Okay, so that's for teachers using screen share. That's also an option. I got a question about ESL Library Digital, and there were some great answers to some troubleshooting questions about that on the teacher-only forum. And because ESL Library is a paid service, there's going to be some sharing restrictions around that. So if you are trying to keep everything in one spot, maybe those PDF resources are going to be the best option for you, and putting those on your course page. But if you want to show your class how to use your digital space in ESL Library and you have an account, you can use screen sharing to show them how to navigate that as well. Okay. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to move ahead a little bit, and I'm going to come back to the chat box questions near the end. So if you are one of the 4 people who I approached about being my Big Blue Button student, I'll invite you now to go over to our classroom and join as a student while I chat about breakout rooms. So breakout rooms are one of my favorite features in Big Blue Button for using this to increase student engagement and kind of independence. They do take a little bit of time to set up, and I'll show you how to do that. But unlike what I did in the video tutorial that's on YouTube, today I'll show you how you can wander through the tables. In the YouTube tutorial, I assigned myself to one breakout room, and I let my other students just kind of work independently, and I didn't care what they were doing that day. But normally as your teacher, as in your face-to-face classroom, you want to wander around. So when you're in your Big Blue Button classroom, hello, I have 4 students. Thank you very much for joining me today. I have my presentation, I have the option for shared notes, and I have my public chat. And I see on the left that I have my users, and everyone has chosen listen only, and I'm the one who has the little screen, the blue screen icon, which means that I'm the presenter. In my main classroom, if I wanted Paul to be the presenter, it's his presentation today, I could make him the presenter. And then now he has those options. I'm still the moderator. I'm still in charge. And when he's done his presentation, I don't want him to have all of the power still to show things up here. So I can demote him to viewer again and take presenter again. So there's only ever going to be one presenter at a time. This is one option for if you're trying to give your students the floor to upload a PowerPoint to share. And obviously this would be at a higher level. But what do I want to do if I want my students just to work in pairs or in groups of 3, or however I want to divide them up, and have a little bit of time just to chat amongst themselves before they come back to the main room. To do that with breakout spaces, I'm going to click on my settings wheel here and create breakout rooms. I see the option, so I want, there's the not assigned room, which is your main classroom. And then I want, I think I'm gonna mix it up. So Marjan and John are gonna be in room 1. Paul and Pamela are going to be in room 2. And here's the key thing. I'm not going to assign myself because I want to be able to wander around. So I have 2 rooms. I'm only going to leave this up maybe for 3 minutes. This is a really quick activity. Sometimes you may want to allow your students to choose which room to join, but I want to have the most control today, so I'm not going to let them do that. You can also let Big Blue Button randomly assign your groups. But I know that these guys will work well together, so I'm going to leave it the way it is. Once I've done that, and I've made sure that I haven't assigned myself, I will click Create. And my students will get a new invitation to a new breakout room. And I won't. I don't see the breakout rooms up here, but I see what's going on over here. Now, my 2 students have been disconnected, or my 4 students, sorry, have been disconnected from my regular Big Blue Button audio. They should still be able to hear me because we're connected to audio via Zoom right now for this webinar. and I would have given them some instructions. If I've forgotten something, I can end all breakout rooms and bring them back, and it will close that extra tab. So I forgot to give my students the instructions. Oh dear. What they saw when they went to their breakout room was going to be whatever was last on my slide. So if you're using breakout rooms, make sure you have your instructions up here. And for my partners or my students, we will follow these instructions today, but we're only going to have time for one partner to do the upload of the photo that I talked to you about. So just for simplicity's sake today, gentlemen, you are partner A, and ladies, you are partner B. So I'm going to put us back in our breakout spaces. My students will still see these instructions when they pop over, and then we'll see how I can wander back and forth. So I go back to my cog and wheel, create breakout rooms. 2, I have my students all lined up, and I only want them in there for 3 minutes. I haven't assigned myself, create. So they're there. To upload their photo, they're going to do the same thing that I do when I upload a presentation. They're going to go to their actions, upload a presentation, and choose their JPEG photo. Maybe my class is working on descriptions, as we can see here with some adjectives. And I can see which students are in which room because of the numbers beside their names. And I can also, by clicking on breakout rooms, I can click on join room. Students can also choose to come back to the main classroom and type in the public chat if they're having a problem, or I can join the room. So my original classroom is here. The room that I'm joining is opening up here. It's taking a moment. And I'm just going to listen only for right now, that my students don't need to hear me. And I see that Paul has uploaded his photo. They're working on a description. And are they in the shared notes? Aha, so I can see that they are typing different adjectives, and they're going to collaborate on those sentences that they need to write. So I know this group is working well, and now I'm going to go check on this group. How are they doing? Nobody has reached out to me in the main classroom to say that they're having major problems, so I'm just going to pop in. I can eavesdrop on them if they are using their microphone. Yes, so to answer you, can they talk to each other in the breakout rooms? Yes, if they've enabled their microphones. So I just chose listen only for right now, just for simplicity's sake, but they can use the microphone. Aha, John, you're having a microphone issue. Hello. Where's Marjan? Oh no, okay. So Marjan must have left the breakout room. What can I do? I can go to breakout room invitations, and I want to put her in room 1. Invite. Let's see if she accepts the invitation. The dog scared her. Oh no. If they click join with video, what does it look like? Great question. So if they click join with video, there will be a little video box that happens up here. Great. Shared notes. Okay, so now my breakout room has ended. That was my 3-minute breakout space. What has happened is I've gone back to my main Big Blue Button classroom. Those breakout rooms have closed. I only set them for 3 minutes. Normally as the teacher, again, I'm going to select microphone. If they click join with video, there's a question about that. you can see that on the YouTube tutorial, but there will be some video boxes that happen just above the slides. And depending on how many people have joined with video, you'll see kind of a collage of different faces there. If it's just the teacher, you'll just see that one there as well. All right, I have somebody in the public chat. Great. So Pamela's asking, I typed in the public chat during the breakout group, it is gone. Did the other breakout group see it, and where is it gone now? Excellent questions. So anything that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and what happens in breakout rooms stays in breakout rooms. It's going to get deleted once the breakout room closes. So if you have your students in a breakout space, maybe assigning a breakout captain, so the partner A kind of scenario, as the person who needs to copy and paste from the shared notes or their chat back into the main room, that can be part of their responsibilities. So yes, the shared notes are specific to each particular breakout room. When I was eavesdropping in and out and I saw Paul and Pamela's descriptions of the astronaut, I think it must have been Pamela, maybe, because that was her role as the partner, describing that as relaxing. And I could see her chatting that or typing that in the shared notes. So once my students have finished their collaboration there before the time limit is up, they can copy and paste that back into our main classroom if that's what they are supposed to be doing for their assignment. When you're in a breakout space, there is a time limit public countdown. So if I do that just quickly one more time, and I do it just for 1 minute, and I put the people back together. Let's take a look at what happens, because I have Marjan as the first person here and Paul as the first person here. Let's see what happens. I'm going to create those rooms, and I'm going to join this one. So I have joined one breakout room. I could choose my microphone if I wanted to give some vocal input. And because even though Paul was the first person on my list, Pamela was the first person to connect. So she has the presenter icon next to her name, but she can give that power to Paul, as can I, the teacher, to make him presenter. So again, giving your students some clear instructions about who is the breakout captain or the team lead or something like that can be really, really helpful. And then whoever has that presenter power has the ability to upload something here. Can the teacher copy and paste in the shared notes post breakout room? So I can see in the shared notes when I was in the breakout space, and I could do that as well. If you don't have time to do that, or if you get sidetracked by a student asking a complicated question, it's always a good idea to have a student who's in charge of doing that so they don't lose their work by accident if you are trying to deal with a different issue. Okay, so that's what I have for breakout rooms. So some helpful notes, again, try assigning one individual per room to be the breakout captain. The breakout captain and the moderator may not be the same person at first. It all depends on who is the fastest clicker to join that breakout space. So we saw in my second example there, I had put Paul as the first person on my list, but Pamela was the first person to get in there. So she's the first presenter role, but she has the power to trade that and to pass it over to Paul. And we see that in the Zoom chat that Paul was able to take. Oh, you were able to take presenter just now. That's great. Okay. And this, I think, responds to the other question. So all of the content from the breakout rooms is not going to be pulled over automatically. So just make sure you have a plan and some detailed instructions for your students. for what they need to do with their content. One teacher is saying, I didn't see anything special beside my name. I don't know how I would know I was presenter. Okay, so if I go back to my classroom, it could be that with the settings in your EduLink course, if you're a non-editing teacher or something like that in the classroom that you were in, that you weren't a moderator, but you should, if you're the presenter, see this little blue TV kind of screen on your name, and that implies that you have all the power. You're the ninja. All right, we have about 15 minutes left, and I have a little bit of time to troubleshoot a few common tech issues. I've had a few different mentors reach out to me, or other teachers just saying, these are the things that are coming up. So big things that you can do to make sure your students have as few issues as possible. Make sure they're using Firefox or Chrome. Now is not the time to use a free web browser from our home countries in other languages. It's going to get very confusing and the settings are not going to work. So really try to hammer home Firefox or Chrome, and those work really well with EduLink as well. So that should be pretty standard. If you're having some audio issues or you're trying to prevent audio issues, encourage your students to use headphones and to learn how to mute their microphone. So I go over that in the video tutorial on YouTube as well. And in a minute, I've just found something really, really cool this morning about how you can just automatically blanket mute everyone's microphone forever if you want it, which is great in an assessment or different things. We'll see in just a second. Your EduLink courseware and Big Blue Button are accessible on mobile devices and on laptops. There were some questions on the teacher forum about accessing recordings where there was an issue with Apple devices accessing those older recordings, and our wonderful Moodle support people got that fixed and up and running. So Android and Apple users can do everything on Big Blue Button, but and I think somebody asked me about this earlier, it does look just a little bit different on a mobile or tablet because your screen is smaller. So if you're dealing with students who maybe are a little bit less tech savvy, or anybody who's new to this software, and I'll show you what it looks like. For them to access the public chat, the shared notes, or the list of students, to either make or take presenters, or to clap their hands or raise their hand or give a thumbs up, they're going to have to click on this little person icon. And that exists in my Big Blue Button classroom, but we can think of it like everything on a mobile device or a tablet is visible from where my mouse is right now to the right. They will see that first, and then to see anything over here, the chat, the notes, or the users, they would have to click on this little guy, and he'll be at the top left of their screen as well. And if I click on that, even on my laptop, those things appear or disappear as well. Okay, so just make sure that having that awareness of what it's going to look like for your students can make a really big difference in explaining that. I did have a student whose language settings randomly switched to Arabic, and she does not speak Arabic, and everything in Big Blue Button was now in Arabic, and being able to talk her through the different symbols. For example, just as a side note, your language settings are in your settings, and the application language is in English, thank goodness. But for her, who doesn't speak Arabic at all, but now was reading in Arabic apparently, everything was not only in a different language, but it was also flipped left to right. So knowing what things look like for your students makes a huge difference. Okay, so those are some of the tech issues. I have a couple more. Connecting to audio. Especially students who are newer to using the computer or the internet, they might have been trained to automatically close any pop-ups that open. And this is helpful for internet ads, but not helpful for when they're trying to join the audio on Big Blue Button. They will see something that looks like this. And because it's a pop-up, some students automatically go for the X button and try to close that out. And that can be very confusing afterwards if now they can't really speak with their teacher through Big Blue Button. So to answer someone's question about a video on joining Big Blue Button for low language students, I have a couple resources for you at the end of our webinar that hopefully will be helpful. So when you're going through that or teaching your students about using Big Blue Button, tell them that they will have to see this pop up. The changing the application language, it could be helpful for low digital literacy skills, low language level. It's up to your preference and what your center thinks about changing language settings and things like that. It's up to you. Now you know where it is. The power is in your hands to change as you will. I would recommend trying it in English first. All of the students that I've worked with, if you can take the time to go slowly, one-on-one or in small groups, it works out okay. And just a quick note about connecting by phone. In my original help document and tutorial, I mentioned that sometimes students can connect by phone to Big Blue Button for audio. This is a feature of Big Blue Button as a program, but not something that we have enabled for Big Blue Button through EduLink. And I think we can understand why when we consider that we're a national body and having one phone number or even 5 phone numbers connected to one Big Blue Button classroom for however many hundreds of people are accessing it would be problematic. So my apologies for that. My first experience with Big Blue Button was a much smaller company in Europe, and they had some dedicated phone numbers for their classrooms and like a schedule for using those conference rooms. So that information isn't as up to date for our use with EduLink. Here's the biggest tech issue that people have been asking me about, and I don't always have the answer. If there's an echo or audio video problems, it could be a bandwidth issue, either your students or yours. It could be that everyone in their house is home because of COVID and using their iPads and all of the internet is getting sucked up. I think we can all relate to that. I have had students have multiple versions of the classroom open in multiple tabs. So they might try to have Big Blue Button open in Firefox and in Chrome and in another browser and on their phone and on any other device that they have because they were trying to be super prepared. And they're all playing at once. It's like that internet tab issue where you don't know where the music's coming from, but it's coming from somewhere. So just encouraging students to click once on the virtual classroom and waiting for it to open. That can alleviate this issue. If there's a little bit of an echo or you're hearing a lot of background noise, it could be that your students aren't using headphones or a headset, or they're just not in a very quiet spot in their house. Where I don't have as much expertise is with the external video echoes or audio problems. And if you're continuing to experience that, please reach out to Moodle support on the teacher forum or to your EduLink mentor, and we can try to troubleshoot a couple of those things. This is beyond me, and I apologize for that. All right, we have 5 minutes left. I will be sharing my slides. Low-level learner access. So to answer your question, there is a great resource. It's a paper resource, not a video, but a how-to doc that a teacher uploaded on the teacher-only forum. So if you search for EduLink how-to documents for low-level learners on that EduLink teacher-only forum, you will find a few different paper documents. And the one that I saw today was super and very step-by-step, very, very low-level English, and would be great for that. There is a video in the courseware help block for students, and the audio for that is a little bit fast. I'm seeing some suggestions in the chat about slowing down. the video to 0.75, that's an option. If you're finding that it's just too much language in general, even just seeing the steps, the visual steps in that video are pretty straightforward and slow. So even if you've muted the video, or get your student to mute the video and just copy the steps one by one, that's fine. Like I say in the tutorial, keep your expectations low for your first Big Blue Button session. If you're just about to leave, excuse me, there will be a recording put up on the Learn IT to Teach YouTube channel, so you're not going to miss too much. Thanks for coming. Yeah, keep your expectations low. Start with just getting your students connected. Can they use their microphone? Can they use their video? Yes, high five. Awesome. That's it for today. And then the next time, doing some more things. This is especially important if you have low-level learners who are low in digital literacy as well. All right, in my last 4 minutes, I'm just going to talk about a couple really quick synchronous teaching ideas. So using the flipped model, like I mentioned in the document, get your students to do something ahead of time, review with them during your conference, and then have some homework to follow up. You can use that interactive whiteboard a lot. And one example that I wanted to talk about was using Big Blue Button for live assessments, or even maybe PBLA artifacts. For example, for presentations for higher level learners. For in my employment program that I was a part of, we've used it for practical evaluations, where students preparing for customer service roles, for example, who are now at home because of COVID, but still need to practice those customer service skills, they might practice a face-to-face conversation or a phone conversation, depending on their level and if they're using video, or even have their customer, the teacher, call them or come to the store and show them an item in a flyer or on a website using the presenter tools that way. If you're using Big Blue Button for individual appointments, make sure you've been clear about individual time slots and again, the recording considerations. And lastly, I'll show you the lock viewer option. In Big Blue Button, by users, there's a lock viewers choice right above the breakout rooms. And what happens when I choose that is it allows me to choose which features my students have access to. So do I want them to be able to share their webcam, or to see other people's webcams, or share their microphone, or send private messages to each other? If I'm doing an assessment, I don't want them to be able to share private chat messages with each other, especially. So I can choose those features and click apply. All right, I'm on my last minute. I'm really sorry that this is so fast. There's a lot to cover, but if you have further questions about Big Blue Button, please feel free to reach out on that teacher only forum. I've been answering a few questions on there. Your mentors and Moodle support have lots of resources and expertise to share with you. And you can email me at this email address up until May 8th. I am going to be taking a leave of absence for a little while, but try out some things, send me an email, see how it goes. And I think I got through just about everybody's questions. Thank you for the collaboration in the chat box for some troubleshooting there. Thank you to Paul and Marjan and Pamela and John for being my students today in Big Blue Button. And honestly, everyone, you've got the skills, you've got the gumption to do this. Just take the time to practice it a little bit, and I'm sure that you'll do a great job. If you have any further questions just before you go, you can pop them in the chat, and I'll stick around for just a minute. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, if you're finding that Big Blue Button is a little bit overwhelming at first, try just some other activities on EduLink and then work your way up to something like this. There's no shame in that at all. Changing your name on Zoom. It depends on if you're joining by laptop or by mobile. I think if you're on your laptop, you should be able to see in participants. Yeah, if you click on participants, I think you should be able to right click on your name and change your name that way. Yeah, or if you hover over your name and click more and then rename. There we go, that's what I mean. If you've lost your tools at the top and bottom, it could be that you just have your chat open. I'm honestly not an expert in Zoom, I'm sorry. Sadia's question about the text box can be used anywhere in a PDF or Word. Yes, you can draw a text box anywhere on your PDF or Word document, but you can't move it once you've finished drawing it. It's going to be stuck. I am not using the free Zoom version for this session, no, sorry. I have used the free Zoom version on my own, but for something like this, I'm using a paid account. Well, I'll just give us 1 or 2 more minutes for quick questions, and then I'm going to close the call. All right, thanks everyone for joining me. I hope you have a great day, and best of luck in your teaching.